Viewer discretion is advised. This content is for education and entertainment purposes. Any opinions are the opinion of hosts or guests and not the opinion of employers.
Thank you for joining Oust Now Podcast for This Is Us. And on this episode, we celebrate a very, very special American hero, Rosa Parks.
Before she became the famous woman who refused to stand, she was born on February 4th, 1913, in Tuskegee, Alabama. Look at that, fellow February baby. As a child, she worked on a plantation to supplement the family income on a plantation of Moses Hudson, who paid Black children 50 cents a day to pick cotton. In today's time, it would be about $16 a day.
Parks initially attended school in a one-room schoolhouse at the local Mountain Zion AME church, but missed school often due to chronic illness. Though, after a tonsillectomy, her health improved. When she became 11 or 12, she attended Montgomery Industrial School for Girls for vocational training, and when it closed, she moved on to Booker T. Washington Jr. High School.
She ultimately dropped out to care for her ailing grandmother and mother, where she worked on her family's farm and as a domestic worker.
In 1931, Rose was introduced to her future husband, Raymond Parks. Rosa described Raymond as the first real activist she had met, admiring his opposition to racial prejudice. The two married in December 18, 1932, at Rosa's mother's house.
Following their marriage, Raymond and Rosa became involved in the Scottsboro Boys case concerning a group of 9 Black boys who were falsely accused of raping 2 white women on a train in Paint Rock, Alabama. The Scottsboro Boys faced trial in Scottsboro, Alabama, where they were sentenced to death by electrocution. To raise support for their defense, Rosa and Raymond hosted fundraising meetings and gatherings for Scottsboro legal defense at their Montgomery residence. The Supreme Court of the United States ultimately overturned the Scottsboro Boys' conviction in Powell versus Alabama, citing insufficient legal representation. Wow.
Hmm.
Okay. Not surprising. Surprise, surprise.
Okay.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
Say it again. Sorry, it's supposed to be stoic and not funny, but I kind of meant it. She completed her high school education in 1933 at a time when only 7% of Black people held a high school diploma. Subsequently, she worked as a nurse's aide at St. Margaret's Hospital, sewing to supplement her income. In 1941, she began working at Maxwell Air Force Base, a training facility for Air Force cadets. The base was fully integrated, and Parks was able to take public transit alongside her white coworkers on base. However, when she returned home, she was required to use segregated buses, which frustrated her.
She and Raymond were also members of the Voters League, a local organization focused on increasing Black voter registration. There were numerous obstacles preventing Black people from registering to vote in Alabama during this period, including poll taxes, literacy tests, intrusive questions on voters' registration applications, and retaliation by employees. As of 1940, less than 0.1% of Black Montgomeryans were registered to vote.
As a secretary for the NAACP, Parks began investigating the gang bleep of Racy Taylor, a Black woman from Abbeville, in 1944. After a grand jury failed to indict the perpetrators, Parks and Other civil rights activists organized the Committee for Equal Justice for Miss Racy Taylor, launching the strongest campaign for equal justice to be seen in a decade, according to the Chicago Defender. The campaign, which received nationwide attention, put pressure on Governor Chauncey Sparks to take steps to prosecute Taylor's assailants. Sparks ultimately promised to investigate the case. However, the state failed to secure indictments for the assailants after a second grand jury hearing in 1945. Funny how that works.
Mm.
Has much changed? 45 counts, baby. I just had to say it.
Okay. In the summer of 1955, they encouraged and eventually helped sponsor Parks to attend the Highlander Folk School, an activist training center in Monteagle, Tennessee. There, Parks was mentored by a veteran organizer, Septima Clark. Parks later reflected that her experience at Highlander provided her with a vision of a unified, integrated society, marking the first time in her adult life she witnessed people of all races and backgrounds interacting harmoniously. Later in August 1955, she attended a Montgomery meeting concerning the lynching of Emmett Till.
At 5 p.m. on December 1st, 1955, Parks left work and purchased several items from Lee's Cut Rate Drug before walking to Court Square to wait for her bus. She boarded the bus at around 5:30. Lost in thought, she did not notice that James F. Blake was the driver, a driver to which she had had words with the prior year and would always avoid his bus. Parks later stated that if she had noticed Blake, she would not have boarded that bus. She paid her fare and went to sit in the middle section of the bus next to a black man and across from two black women. She refused to stand or move to allow for white passengers to sit.
I'm happy she didn't realize it was that driver that day, huh? That she changed history.
Right?
Isn't that amazing how things kind
Mhm.
of according to the biographer Douglas G. Brinkley, Parks refusing to move was not premeditated. Parks' former classmate, Mary Fair Burks, also clarified that Parks was not acting on behalf of the NAACP.
Parks said of her refusal to move, "People always say that I didn't give up my seat because I was tired, but that isn't true. I was not tired physically or no more tired than I usually was at the end of a working day. I was not old, although some people have an image of me as being old then. I was 42. No, the only tired I was tired of giving in."
Mm. She was then taken to the city jail where she was fingerprinted and photographed. After Parks' arrest in 1955, local activists decided to use her case as a test case against segregation, leading the Women's Political Council, WPC, to organize a 1-day bus boycott on the day of her trial. The boycott was widespread, with many Black Montgomeryans refusing to ride the buses that day. After Parks was found guilty of violating state law, the boycott was extended indefinitely. Check that out.
Now it is going to give a little bit of introduction. I don't know who the narrator is. Just listen.
Rosa Parks. Rosa Parks, born in 1913, is known as the mother of the modern-day civil rights movement. In 1955, her refusal to give up her seat on a Montgomery, Alabama bus to a white person instigated the Montgomery bus boycott organized by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Her single act of civil disobedience in defiance of a racially biased law became a symbol of the civil rights movement, and Parks herself became a symbol of nonviolent resistance to racial segregation as well. Parks worked with the civil rights leaders of the time, lending her name and story to their efforts. She was particularly helpful to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., helping him to become nationally recognized and established as a spokesman in the early years of the civil rights movement. Rosa Parks moved from Alabama to Detroit, Michigan, where she lived a quiet life, first as a seamstress and then as secretary to U.S. Representative John Conyers. She was widely honored and respected in her lifetime. Rosa Parks died in Detroit at the age of 92. Remarks at the Million Man March, October 16, 1995.
The platform steady.
Happy to be here. I honor my late husband, Raymond Parks, other freedom fighters, men of goodwill who could not be here. I'm also honored that young men respect me and have invited me as an elder. Raymond, or Parks as I called him, was an activist in the Scottsboro boys case, voter registration, and a role model for youth. As a self-taught businessman, he provided for his family, and he loved and respected me. Parks would have stood proud and tall to see so many of our men uniting for atonement and committing their lives to a better future for themselves, their families, and this country. Although criticism and controversy has been focused on in the media instead of benefits for the 1 million men assembling peacefully for spiritual food and direction, it is a success. I pray that my multiracial and international friends will view this gathering as an opportunity for all men, but primarily men of African heritage, to make changes in their lives for the better. I am proud of all groups of people who feel connected with me in any way, and I will always work for human rights for all people. However, as an African American woman, I am proud, applaud, and support our men in this assemblage. I would like to have male students of the Pathways Freedom to join me here and wave their hands, but I don't think they're here right now. But thank you all young men of the Pathways for Freedom. Thank you, and God bless you all. Thank you.
Okay, that was pretty cool. So if you haven't quite figured the theme here, part of the inspiration for this series is from this collection of speeches from Black women. Because again, this season is all about the ladies. So it was really nice to be able to hear her voice. And, you know, in today's day and age, we have a lot of video audio that we can kind of play, but it's rare to have something from the legendary Rosa Parks herself. And it was pretty exciting. And from the Million Man March, which was even more powerful. And she attributed that moment to her husband, which was another civil rights
beautiful.
activist. Like,
Yeah.
amazing. You know, with episode 1, we spoke about someone that we all know and love, but Rosa Parks, we all know her as a historical figure, but I think that there have been little known facts about her that we are taught. And just by looking, I learned a lot, which is another reason why we wanted to do this, right? We wanted to learn more about our history and not just the Cliff Notes version and the highlights that we tend to get in school or in wherever. You have to actively go and want to look and learn, right? So we are doing that with you. So thank you for joining us on that. I had a few takeaways from researching Miss Parks, and I'm impressed by her.
Mhm.
She's not just a woman who didn't want to stand up because she was tired physically.
That part. That part.
She was
Yes.
tired.
Yes.
She
Yes.
was, but she was tired
And
of
not
the
that kind of
BS.
tiredness. That.
Respectfully.
Very respectfully.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I
Um,
agree. I feel like that's what we're taught growing up. Exactly what you said. We're taught that she was some tired older lady, that her feet was hurting or her back was hurting or whatever the case may be, that she didn't want to stand for white passengers. But actually, thanks to Oust Now Podcast Presents This Is Us, we definitely learned some other facts about her that I, I know that I did not know. I mean, she's known for that specifically, but she has done other greater things, her and her husband. And I'm honored to, I'm always honored to discuss these things and talk about uh, beautiful people in our history, people of color in our history. Um, but I really enjoy doing this, and I learn a lot that I did not know. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think we all know, like coming out of slavery, that there were a lot of families who had to sharecrop from that moment, but learning the fact that she was, in order to help supplement the family income, she picked cotton for 50 cents a day, and the fact that today's equivalent would be $17 roughly, here or there, $16. Who would work for $16 a day? Who could work for $16 a day? What would that exactly
Oh,
supplement? Like, I was
girl,
like, what?
in today's society, I don't even know if that's worth the gas,
Half a tank?
right?
Half a tank.
Like, would that be would that
Maybe.
even be a half a tank? Not
No,
even.
depending on
I
your
guess it would
vehicle.
depend on the vehicle. I guess it would right. But I don't know too many vehicles that let's round it up. Let's just say $20, right?
Mhm.
I don't know too many vehicles where $20 is going to give a half tank, especially not today. With gas being the way it is it gonna give you a half tank? I don't know.
I have to think about it.
Maybe.
My
I
Civic,
don't know.
maybe. My Civic would have given me half a tank, but that was like years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, like 10 years ago.
Okay. So yeah, so I could
No, wait.
I don't know.
Oh,
I just feel like I don't know. Yeah. I to work for that and her story, there's some parts of her story that unfortunately was so common then. Right? I think about even our grandmother, how a lot of times the women or just people of color period had to bow out of school because they had to work and help, because if one person is making, let's say, like you said, 16 hours, $16 a day, you will need other people to be working. You would need other sources of income. Even now, today's society is definitely a place of where it's a whole lot easier with, listen, not a lot easier, a lot easier with two sources of income. And even then,
mhm.
it's hard. So, um, but she did not, in my opinion, I feel like she worked hard, and she did not let any of the things around her, I feel like, really define her. And it's amazing how we make change literally on accident. And when I say on accident, I mean, like, listening to that story, she wasn't even trying to get on that man, but she didn't even realize it. Isn't that amazing how sometimes God just sets you up. You know, can't nobody tell
Absolutely.
me, can't nobody tell me he don't have a sense of humor because I've seen it for myself. Oh, you funny. Oh, you real funny.
Yes. um, this is something that I have heard of before, but I thought it was BS.
Mm.
Around the time with this most recent election, there was a woman who was talking about the poll tax. Now she didn't say it that way, but there was a video of her talking about having to pay to vote, and I was like, that don't even sound right. But it was right.
It was true. It's
I
fact.
didn't know
Yeah.
that there was a such thing as a poll tax. And then, of course, that poll tax only applied to people of color. Funny how that worked. And then
Surprise, surprise.
what you were saying about having to, like, make sacrifices for families, there. What I thought was interesting, or a sign of the times, is that she was in junior high school, learning a vocational, as a vocational, and as opposed to, like, in this day and age, we don't start looking at vocational schools until after high school. So at 12, 11, 12, when she was in that range, she was moving towards learning about vocations, not just education. And I
Correct.
was like, huh.
Yeah.
I just thought that was interesting.
Ahead of her time. Ahead of her time. Yeah.
No, more to the sense
No.
of, at 13, like, you're preparing someone at 12 or 13 for real world, but at the time,
Absolutely.
that was it. There was no higher, I mean, for our people in certain communities, there was no, like,
Okay.
college wasn't a thing. You can learn a trade, and that's that. But at 11 or 12,
Yeah.
11, I can't picture. And I'm about to have an 11-year-old soon enough later this year, and I'm like, I can't even get you to wash dishes without having to pay you Robux. We gotta
Girl.
negotiate shit. Ooh, we have to negotiate things. This is a respectable
Child.
series.
Look, with all due respect, I'm not negotiating nothing. Look, go wash some dishes.
you
Period.
know,
Point blank.
yeah, a different time.
Yo, you know what's crazy is that my son, um, the one is that we're so blessed i- is recovering. Like I'm blessed for all of my kids, but we're so blessed that he is here and he recovered, and is still making progress, right? Um, but he said that to me today. He was like, "What happened to the Janine that used to stand on business? Honey, you didn't play no games." I said, "I got old and I got tired. Tired. No, I'm not about that life no more. I can't handle it. Like it's so much easier just be like, all right."
Let me just make this easier on me. Fine.
And it's maybe I am doing a little bit of an injustice, but I've learned, and I think you have inspired this as well. Sometimes you just have to be like,
I
do
don't know.
sometimes you have to do what's going to be easier for you and less stressful. So if that means um letting certain things kind of, not anything major, let's be clear,
Mhm.
but by letting being unbothered by certain things because I'm not gonna get my damn blood pressure up, then so be it. So
Yeah.
be it.
Did you know that there is a such thing as an activist training center?
No,
Same. Same.
not even. I have, again, doing this has kind of like, oh wow, who knew? Um, I wonder do they still have that?
Mm.
And then the other thing that I thought about was, wow, could you imagine things being so I don't want to say controversial. What's the word I'm looking for? The world being in such a place that we need activist schools, not colleges, not saying that we didn't have them. You understand what I'm trying to say? Like, not more colleges, not more elementary schools, not more middle schools, high schools. They say middle school where I'm at, but I grew up with it being junior high school, whatever. But
Same.
but um but activist schools, that stood out to me as well. Like, wow. Um,
I wonder,
yeah,
like, what kind of things they would have taught, because when you consider some of the things that was done to the activists, like if you think about Greensboro, the buscots, boycotts in Greensboro, they were, fire hosing people, sicking, and I don't think that was unique to just Greensboro, but, overall, fire hosing people and putting dogs on people just for practicing your constitutional right, which we didn't have at that time, which we now have, which I think was solidified by the 14th Amendment, I believe. So, and that's all that was the end goal. But to peacefully protest for the needs or the demands of your citizens, and to be treated in such a manner, like you would have to train people to be like, look, this is what's going to happen, you just need to expect it. And that's kind of shocking. Yeah.
doesn't it's like it makes you kind of doesn't it kind of when I really sat and thought about it, it definitely gave me poise. Like, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
like
I think the biggest takeaway we could have learned from this episode is that, she was more than just a woman who decided not to stand on a bus. Before that moment, she was an activist for civil rights, and nobody really knows that. I sure didn't.
yeah.
And it's easily accessible information. I mean, hey, Wikipedia is a great source of knowledge, who is our source of today. Thank you so much. And then, of course, this speeches audiobook that really is part of the inspiration of this. The knowledge is there. And I suggest for everyone to continue to seek it before it's said or thought that the narrative needs to change to suit a different type of
Mm,
America.
that part.
So remember that Rosa Parks was more than a woman who just decided not to stand. She was an activist and remained an activist throughout her life, not just on a bus, that sparked the Montgomery boycotts. She was the spark. She became the spark to do it, but she was just tired. But yeah,
Amen.
I think that's the big piece. Look for the knowledge, learn the knowledge so you can share it with your children and your friends. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So,
Uh,
as usual, we thank you for joining us for Oust Now podcast in this series called This Is Us. And we look forward to your continued support.
Absolutely. We cannot grow without each and every one of you. And we hope that you take our baby and make it grow into something phenomenal, because that's what we see. It's phenomenal now, but you know what I mean.
Just
Um,
growing.
correct.
We
Just
grow.
continue to grow. And the fact that you take time out of your day to listen to our humble podcast and to get this history moment and find out facts that we did not know, we appreciate it. Thank you guys and girls so much.